The cost of living crisis has weighed heavily on consumers. That's according to AdvTech. The tile manufacturer and retailer saw this in low demand for its products during its full year, and that weighed on profit. Headline earnings per share slipped 7%. CEO Lance Foxcroft says increased competition also took its toll. But despite this, shareholders are in for a windfall. The group's cash balance grew significantly during the year, and as a result, a special dividend of 78 cents per share has been declared. This takes the total payout for the year to 127 cents, which is a 140% jump on the previous period's dividend. Looking ahead, AdvTech says it will focus on improving the group's competitive position so that it can retain its place as an industry leader. Stadio's report card is in. The private education group has achieved a 20% rise in half-year headline earnings per share. That's as student numbers grew 10% in the first semester. That expansion was largely due to a rise in new contact learning student growth at the higher education level. No dividend has been declared as Stadio only pays out to shareholders at the full-year mark. Meanwhile, AdvTech has reported a 16% increase in interim headline earnings per share. The education firm, which owns brands such as Crawford and Trinity House, benefited from strong enrollments during the period. CEO Jeff White has described the performance as strong and says it was achieved despite a challenging economic environment. A half-year dividend of 38 cents has been declared. That's a 26% increase on the previous period's payout. Harmony Gold shot the lights out. The bullion producer says full-year production has exceeded its upward revised guidance, supported by higher recovered grades at Mboneng, Hidden Valley and Mine Waste Solutions. And that, coupled with a higher gold price received, gave its bottom line a boost. Harmony expects its headline earnings per share to more than double to just over 18 Rand. The mine is set to open its books next month. Goldfields has selected a new CFO. Philip Murnane will take up the position in early 2025. The miner has yet to establish an exact start date, but says it will communicate this to the market once this has been determined. Murnane will take over from Alex Dull, who is currently serving as interim CFO. Murnane is a qualified accountant with over 20 years of experience in the resources sector. And Ibex Group, which was formerly Steinhoff, has taken the Reserve Bank to court. That's after the SARB went back on its approval to allow 9 billion rand of funds to be used to repay foreign creditors who agreed to extend the maturity of their loans to the company. That agreement prevented an uncontrolled liquidation and the loss of up to 50,000 jobs in South Africa after Steinhoff crashed in 2017. The SARB has not given a reason for its refusal to allow the funds to be transferred, despite being aware and approving of the transaction. The bank's decision to block the funds has raised concerns in the market that it might deter foreign investors and bankers from lending to South African companies, for fear the bank might prevent them from repatriating interest and capital on their loans, as central banks have done in some other African countries. Looking at the soft commodities scene now, lemons are one of the most exported agricultural commodities in South Africa, and it continues to grow and hit new records. Here's Gary Alfonso with further insight on that market.
Yeah, that's right. Generally, when they say when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But in South Africa these days, it looks like if life gives you lemons, it's time to make profits. Simply because the products of lemons are now so sought after worldwide, not only as an ingredient in food, but generally as a fresh produce as well, and the market's growing around the world. I brought 2 lemons into the studio to showcase. First of all, this is a lemon with seeds. And these grow in just about most of South Africa's lemon growing regions. And then you have the new seedless lemon growing in parts of South Africa that's really becoming a sought-after commodity because of the lack of seeds in these and in South Africa's plantations being mature and growing these. But to understand a little bit about how lemons fit into South Africa's citrus production, it's one element, it's one category of South Africa's lemon or citrus production. This is called hard citrus. It's the stuff that doesn't peel so easy, like naartjies and clementines, etc. But South Africa is a great producer of this and is now starting to play in the top 10 in the world. So when we look at the graph of how South Africa is actually performing in the world markets, you'll see that South Africa has in the last 2 years entered the top 10 in the world. And this is quite significant in the fact that in the past 20 to 30 years, South Africa was always batting at around about 25 to 30 in lemon producing environments. So something has happened from an export perspective, from a price perspective for South African lemon producers. Lemon and lime fits into the same category globally. So something has happened, and you'll see that the world's biggest producing markets there are India. First of all, they produce about 3.5 million tons per person of production is they produce 2.5 or 3.5 million tons to 2.5 people in their market. So our efficiency is really incredible because we're producing about 650,000 tons of lemons per 11 people. So that means we're very efficient in the way we're producing. So to get away from the global graph, one then has to look at what are the areas in South Africa producing lemons, and why is it that the areas that produce lemons are well, not only efficient, but also quite prolific in producing lemons for the export market. And that's because across South Africa, South Africa's temperature and climate is really suited to lemon production. And here you can see from the Citrus Growers Association the chart that Limpopo produces or has the most hectares of lemon and lime producing citrus in the country, and then followed by the Eastern Cape. And the Eastern Cape, of course, prolific in some of that Sundays Valley producers areas, and that's because the climate between February and September is cold, and there's generally good rains and good weathers in those parts of the country. But to also understand finally the pressures that South Africa's citrus industry, and particularly lime and lemons, are under, one also has to look at the South Africa's forecast is looking good for the next year or two, but then there's a global decline coming again. In looking at those graphs, one of the most important aspects to remember is the fact that globally, as you can see here, South Africa is scheduled to produce a higher crop than the previous year, than the 23 estimate, because of good rains, good water, and also some global supply chain problems in getting citrus to world markets and global consumers. But you also see a decline in areas planting lemons and limes because an orchard takes about 5 years to fully produce in South Africa. There is concern that perhaps the profitability is being squeezed out, but new markets are opening up all the time. BRICS is a great place for South Africa to do business, and new markets like Vietnam and all those are opening up all the time. And that's why they say, when life gives you lemons in South Africa, time to make lemonade and profits.
That was Gary Alfonso with Markets Unusual. Further afield, Canada's Lucara Diamond Corp has discovered a 2,492-carat diamond at its Karowe mine in Botswana. The company said it's one of the largest stones to be excavated. Let's take a look at this package report for more insight.
This is Botswana's president holding what could be the second largest rough diamond ever discovered. It was found at the Karowe mine in Botswana, says Canada's Lucara Diamond Corp, which presented the gem to Mogwitsi Masisi. Lucara says it weighs 2,492 carats. That would make it second in size only to the 3,106-carat Cullinan diamond, found in 1905 and now part of the British Crown Jewels. Masisi used the occasion of the latest discovery to emphasize the importance of mining for the country.
They mean everything to us, in the good times and the bad times. Diamond prices are going through a very difficult time right now, but yet every diamond remains precious and valuable.
Botswana is the world's biggest diamond producer by value. Diamonds contribute up to 40% of government revenue, 75% of its foreign exchange earnings, and a third of national output. And that's why Botswana's economy has been disproportionately hit by a drop in demand. Masisi has previously called synthetic gems a threat to the economic lifeblood of the country. And his government has been seeking to get more revenues from its resources. That includes its intention to renegotiate its proposed purchase of a stake in Belgian gem dealer HB Antwerp, to double the size of its shareholding without extra cost.